Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Restore and the Breach podcast. I'm your host, Greg, where I live to help unlock the leadership potential inside of you. Man, I'm excited again. You guys know that's my opening because I love what we do here. We create a safe place and a safe space for men and women to become what God has called them to be. And today is no different than any other episode that we have. I have another awesome brother, someone who is near and dear to me. How do I truly capture his essence? I know he's cracking up as I'm going through this, man. He's an entrepreneur. He's a spoken word lyricist, a human poet. I got to put that there because even in his poetry and lyricism, he knows how to capture humanism in such a way. He's a friend, he's a brother, he's a leader, he's a mentor. And so much more. And this guy will be taking the world by storm. And so I'm excited to have my friend, my brother, Tosin Adebayo on the stage today. Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. Would love to do this in person, but I guess my ambiance is good enough for your show.
No,
So,
I want your ambiance. That's why we're doing it in this way. And I appreciate you, man. As you guys know, this is going to be a relaxed one, man. It's going to be a funny one. We're just inviting you to me and his conversations because this is what we do on a regular. But I appreciate having you, man. This is an honor for me because even though I'm a little older than you, not by a lot, you carry such wisdom. And I have a nickname for you, the human Segway. I call you that, man, because you're a bridge, man. You're a walking bridge. I've watched you in so many ways be a resource for people, whether it's using your giftings from photography to your skill sets behind the scenes in film, to using your voice as just this weapon and tool to build people, man. And to tear down stigmas. And I truly appreciate you, bro, because that's what I live for, man. I live to buck against the prick, man, to be a maverick. And you embody that, man. And I truly appreciate you being on here today, bro.
thank you, man. Listen, if you could see me blush, but this pigment doesn't allow that a little bit, so you're gonna have to pretend that that's what I'm doing right now.
Oh, man. But hey, I wanted you on here. I wanted you on here today, man, because as we've been discussing, this series has just been laying out a blueprint of the Men's Project book, the 5 focus areas of building man. And one of those focus areas that I feel you really embody is what I call the mouth focus area. And that particular area is not just really the mouth in and of itself is symbolic of the power of our words, the power of words spoken over us, the power of words that were never spoken over us, the absence of that power, how we speak into our lives and the people around us, what God says about the tongue and how powerful it is, how it shapes the narrative of culture, impacts entertainment. We know
hmm
that just a 30-second commercial can shift our whole perspective of a product. You know what I
Right.
mean? But it's something I think is very powerful, man. I've watched you utilize that tool on the stage in church, poetry slams, things of that nature, man. And it's something I want to pick your brain a little bit, man. Before we
All
even
right.
even get into that, because we're
Uh-huh.
going to go down that road. I have to paint a picture of who our guest is, man. Who is Tosin Adebayo? Give us a little bit
Here.
about your background, brother.
Oh man, no, I'm never good at this. I am never good at this.
That's the
I let other
objective. That's the
I let other
objective.
people do this. I let other people do this. I really do. I'm never good at this stuff. It's I try to encapsulate it without seeming so prideful. That's the hard part, which is why I let other people do it. Make
That's
it
okay.
so much simpler.
It's just you
Um,
describing you. You can't be puffed up
uh,
talking about you today. Come on.
yeah, today my name is Tosin. I work hard. I'm just kidding. To encapsulate, I like to say that there's a lot that I do, um, but I'm really proud of the creative side of me. It's one of the
Mm.
things that I value, very few things that I value, and that is truly one of it. I started out as a writer, spoken word. I remember I was in high school. My teacher, Miss Wilson, which I would love to reconnect with her, man. She's a very interesting cat. I got it. That's the simplest way that I can say it. But we had this poetry slam called Voices Against Violence. Came in second place. I don't even know. I can't find the video recording of it. I can't find the poem that I did, but that was just the start of it. But it elevated into writing spoken word that wasn't. It feels more lyricist as opposed to poetry. And as I started crafting, I know you've heard the couple of poems that I did, "Atheist Mind of a Christian" and "Christian Mind of an Atheist." I
Oh,
crafted those in the presence of God, and I really wouldn't wake up like, what can I add to this? It was like God would give me a line, and I would marinate it, and I would take those lines and I would dissect it, I would break it down, I would add new layers on top of it. And once I was done, I was like, I've got nothing else. I let it go. I wait for the next one. I wait for it, and it was a patience game. It wasn't a I got to write something today. It was really more about trying to address some of the things that again churches don't really talk about. So that's why the first, and sometimes church fear, which is why the first line of each of them is, "I'm going to hell and I'm okay with it."
oh.
And then so that that reflects. See, when people hear that, see, look, see what I'm talking
You
about.
want an
So
attention grabber. That's the way to open it up.
that was the way that so I think that was the one that I purposely wanted to write. And it was the reason why I chose it is because your reaction to it tells me a lot. Like, so if people like I've had people like, why would you want to go to, like, they're automatically triggered, and I'm like, good, now we're getting somewhere. Let's dive deeper into this. So I started with poetry. Then I started something that I actually thought about today was I have a love for TV shows and film, and I would always it got to, like, I'd taken a lot of film to the point, which is crazy, but I have a Netflix subscription, and I probably only watch maybe one movie once every other month, if that. I pay for it
What?
because my siblings are the ones that use it, so I'm like, I can't
Your
get rid of it.
passion for
But
film? We talk about
so
movies all the time.
hear me out though. Hear me out though. So my biggest thing is that I've gotten it's a lot of formula. Martin Scorsese, I keep messing up his name. Kind of said it. He really looked at like a Marvel Avengers film, and those franchise are kind of in a way destroying cinema in a way, and I kind of agree because all these movies being pumped out, it feels so formulaic that I get really bored, and I started guessing what happens next. It got to a point where I'm in the movie and I'm like, watch this. And then I would say the exact line they would say, or I would say the next action piece, or I'm like, she's a liar. Watch. At the end of the movie, you're going to see something crazy. And it wasn't something that I sit there and I studied. My mind just, in on autopilot, got used to the film that we create now. So one of like the greatest director of all time that I think is Christopher Nolan's, because the man has never been to film school, but the way that you can tell that he likes to sit with his script, making sure everything is like polished. He has a particular style. So my thing was, if you're able to take 20 Christopher Nolans who take their time to develop movies, you could sell actual subscriptions to the movie theaters, like, with Cinemark and all these different movie theaters that, they have their subscription base. It would at least be more fulfilling. But so inevitably, I watch and I avoid. It got to a point where I don't even watch trailers anymore. I actually just go and see the movie because I want to be surprised. Because if I look at the trailer and if I don't see that clip in that movie, I'm like, it's ruined. You're coming back alive because I didn't see you die. Like, I saw you so-called die, but I saw the trailer and you shot some people and you coming back. I like, don't. You're not playing me. So that's why I stopped watching trailers, because they kind of snitch. And honestly, again, autopilot. You can tell pretty much. I've learned that if a movie typically opens with text you have to read, it's going to suck. Because the first rule of film is show, don't tell. So if you have to tell, you're not a good storyteller.
Well, I'm making
So
sure I'm taking notes here in case I decide to create a film, not to put text in the beginning, so Tosin doesn't turn my movie off.
So it's interesting enough. You either get somebody who you watch a trailer and you're like, wow, that movie's going to be good based on how the trailer does. The example. Now, there's one example where you watch the trailer and it's so, you like, that is good. And then you see the movie, it's like, they played me. That was good. I give it to you. One of them was Ant-Man Quantumanium. The trailer, the soundtrack for it, I watched it on repeat because like I love like cinematic soundtracks. It's like one of my biggest go-to. So when I hear it, I'm like, this is really good. The art, like the lines, the way that they were portraying the movie and the direction that it was supposed to go felt like something you had to watch. Then I watched the movie, and towards the end, and I didn't even realize this until like I think a day later, but there was a clip at the end of the movie that felt completely off. It felt like it was a last add-on, like they reshot it and it clipped together and they thought no one would like notice it. But I was like, that was cut at the end. Nah, you had a different ending and I want that ending right there. I want that one. So it inevitably it got to a point where I'm very much unimpressed. And then translating all of that attention to Christian films, which I can do a deeper dive into that. But to me, it felt like there was lackluster of creativity in that, and I had this passion for writing different film ideas and translating that to scripts, and how I kind of want to start it. And I'm happy to give a sneak peek because visually I tend to grow, but I wanted to tell short cinematic pieces with poems or yeah, some I had one with a couple of six liners. Some of the stuff that I written down that didn't translate into a bigger poem, I written down in a notes called bored, which has a double entendre to it. If you see, I
Bored
got
and
him.
bored. Yeah.
You see, that's why I called it that, because it had a double entendre. So I wrote those. So I wanted to take those lines, and then find a visual, an audio soundtrack that would fit it, and actually write on top of it. And one of the projects that I wanted to work on was like working title is My Community. So the idea is to capture maybe a 3 minute footage of my community and color graded, tell a cinematic story about why we are grateful for our communities. Because I always have this thing where once somebody dies, it's like all the things that you've always wanted to tell them start opening up a floodgate. And I just sit there in funerals at times, and I'm just like, where was this when they were alive? So
That's good. That's
so
good.
I honestly, and I adopted that philosophy too, is that I try to live my every day and treat people as if like I may never see them tomorrow. So like I said, I started out with doing poetry. I started out, and then it translated to film ideas, then script ideas that I'm writing, all the way down to photography and visually telling those stories. And before you know it, like I have Mm, uh, a lot of projects that I've written down over the years that I've kept in a journal, and I have every intentions on releasing what those are. But I want to change the whole dichotomy of the Christian space, which the whole terminology, and this may be rub people the wrong way a little bit, but the whole Christian music kind of rubs me the wrong way, because if God is the creator of it, we're just adding our name on it is like almost relinquishing the origins of where it came from. So when I make music, I'm like, oh, I make Christian music. No, I make music. God created music. So I'm giving it back to him. I'm not throwing the label Christian on top of it so that it made you feel better. I'm just making this to glorify God. That's an extended version. I don't really know how to talk about myself, which is why I let people just talk about myself, let people talk about me.
Man, that's all right. But we're getting there. We're getting there. You're an onion. We're peeling back the layers, and I'm
There's a
already
lot of
starting to
layers.
tear up. It's already creating water in my eyes. No,
Oh
man, but
man.
you know, um, the biggest piece. I'm very very big on looking at what created us to be who we are today. And I think one of the biggest components of that, is family. And so, just expound on that, man. Tell us a
Oh,
little bit about your background. Obviously, Adebayo is the last name. We got some African roots, man. Where does that come from, bro?
so I'm originally from Nigeria, particularly the Yoruba tribe. Came here in '99, and I haven't gone back. I'm always disappointed in myself every year that I don't go back. But I guarantee you, when I do go back, they'll look at me and say, "Yep, you look like you definitely lived in America. That complexion did not reflect our sun." So, um, but I still know how to speak the language, make some of the food. I actually take some of the ingredients and put them into some American food, and I got to make you a dish, man. I'm telling you,
Yes, you
your
owe
brother
me.
had
You
it.
owe me. Don't I
You,
didn't
I
forget about
got you,
that.
bro. I got you. Your brother had it. His like I give the so I cooked for your brother, right? And his eyes got real bug-eyed and looked at me. Was like he was so convinced that like at one point in my life, I ignored God about opening up a restaurant, and
You're not walking in your calling.
he looked at me like, "Bro, why haven't you made a restaurant?" I was like, "What else do you want me to do?" You know, you keep telling me to direct films, and they're like, "Why you should open a restaurant, open up a food truck?" I'm like, "Bro, that's time. Let me do this first, you know, because a
You know
restaurant.
you
It's funny because
you know how my brother gets down. Time is he's a master of all. There is no such thing as time. We
Because and then silly me, I ended up telling him that one of my projects that I had to do for business courses in college was to write a business plan, and I wrote one for a restaurant. And I want to use local farms to be able to create nice organic Nigerian dishes with American food, just cuisine to mix it up. And I made the whole like menu and recipe, and I just never followed through with it. I was just like, this was nice. All right, moving on to the next cool idea that I got. So, but we talk about it's a, family and how it shapes who we are. One of the things that I was thinking about, even and I'm grateful. We had our conversation earlier, and I allowed the situation to affect me. Normally, I tried to shake it off. Excuse me, let it roll off, but I'm trying to understand the fundamentals of allowing family dynamic to affect me, and what it could teach me. And
unpack
one
that,
of
man.
that was, unpack that. All right. So
Yeah.
um, I look at my life and I can reflect and say, it could have gone many different variations. This is, you have that whole, everything is ordained aspect of it. And at the same parallel, you also get to set the path that you want to take. It's interesting. They are both parallel. It's not, just always one line. It's always turning and moving, and tomorrow I could say, I want to focus on this aspect of my life, so I have that choice. God gives me that choice, but he also likes to steer me as I make the choice, because even though I'm like, this is dope, but God's like, I get it, but I need you to detour a little bit so you can understand why you want to stay on this path, or why you chose this direction. So they're both parallel. So in saying that, I thought about you know how my hardships created my characters. Doing a little bit of acting, doing a little bit of the multiple different roles that I play in life. From businesses to either photographer, videographer. One day, I had a pastor still one time told me, I know how to take pain and turn it into passion. And with that mindset, I took a lot of the things that frustrated me, and I didn't want. I will say this: I looked at all the pain that in my life, and then I asked myself, could that pain have shaped my mentality that I have today, or help shape the creative element? And if it did, was it worth it? Should I be upset that the things that had happened made me this? Now, you can easily argue that if I was maybe in a more nurturing and loving environment, maybe I could have been a little bit further. Maybe I could have, done something a little bit differently. Sure, we can, debate those. But however, I'm looking at, the intentionality of why God allowed. So think of it this way: you don't have a choice in the family that you're born into. But if God said, I want Greg Coleman to shape, Pittsburgh in this way. Now, the only way that I'm going to get him to understand why the dichotomy of family is important is if I place him in a place that teaches him and that breaks him a
That's
little
good.
bit and then teaches him because of that breaking, he can now be warped into this purpose that I have for him. So that's why I've always adopted the philosophy. Like, I'd never mad at God for the things that happen in my life. I'm frustrated that it happens, but I'm never like, how dare you put me in this? I was like, no, no, no. If God is structuring my life to be this way, for even for me, like God is structuring in a way so that I can create these business ideas that I always have, from this plays to the spoken word to the TV shows, in order for me to truly have that, turn that pain into actual passion, to because I wouldn't be able to understand, and the best way I describe it is, NF, what they kind of said is in the song, how are you going to learn how to love if you never felt hate? How are you going to trust if you've never been, betrayed? So in those kind of principle, I get to learn the, fundamentals of why, relationship is important. Then I hold dearly to tighter on to relationship. And when I do get it, the fruit that it produces will help encourage people who are struggling through that. So my struggles isn't me, saying, God, how dare you, or woe is me. It's really like, I appreciate, and I kid you not, like, people say this, but I thank God for the struggles. Like, and sometimes I'm like, I look at the devil, I'm like, bro, is this the best you can do? I always think about that Avengers scene with like the Age of Ultron, where Thor's like, "Is that the best you can do?" And then you see like Ultron, "This is the best that I can do." You see all these different robots coming in, and you see Captain America. You had to ask. So it's like my flesh and my spirit man are having that conversation. You had to ask. We were fine. But I thought about it, and if I say thank you, God, for the struggles, I can't be selective about how that struggles. It was painful to have to go through the things that I had to go through today. Excruciating. I had to decide if I wanted to shed a tear. I had to decide if I was going to let it hurt me. But I also recognize that I'm usually able to let this roll over my shoulder. So what I also learned is that maybe my environment's a little jacked up, because usually I'm able to, because of my environment, I'm really able to say, hey, you know what, I can get a little, I'm not gonna let this bother me. All right, God, you just have your way. And it's not necessarily the case. And I seem to, we talked about my surroundings seems to be, I'm taking more out of my cup more than anything, and I just need to fill that up. So I, my family dynamic is not the greatest. I'm all about transparency, so I can say this, and hopefully God will, my parents will probably crucify me for this, but whatever. My brother's getting married on Saturday, um, and the whole family's there. My dad, my mom, my sister, and I have, and my brother's the only one that I've kept my relationship with. And I wanted to, and it was hard to be around that environment, because the only reason why I'm there is because of my brother. I I'm not a big fan of how things turned out. But I can't live out of obligations, and that's one of the things that I'm learning. So it was difficult to be in that surrounding. It's in a little way triggering, because one thing, they may say one thing, and then you're, instead of having a simple conversation like this, it now turns to 100, and then you didn't mean it to be an argument. Somebody feels offended, and before you know it, it's a snowball fight in the summer. Not a great plan. So I've learned, I'm learning, I would say, I'm learning how to deal with different family dynamics. However, the biggest struggle that I can honestly say that I have is, would I even, am I too hardened due to family dynamics, and overextending myself to the point where I may push away, love in my life. my brother's fiance. I hate the terminology fiance. That's a whole different conversation. But she said
Hate the
something
term. We're not
today.
gonna get into it.
Yeah,
Golly,
don't do
go
that.
ahead.
Don't do that.
Go ahead.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Be better. Be better. Don't do it.
Stay on course. Stay on
I
course.
know, I know. I'm trying. I'm trying. So she said, "Don't run away from my love," and she was trying to love on me, and I'm receiving it. I'm just hardened against it because, you know, you say you love and you care somebody, and something you said earlier that kind of triggered me, and not in a negative way, but kind of like, how one of those eye-opener moments when you said like people were supposed to be there and protect you, and that terminology, protect you, is so foreign to me that I'm like, wait, that was supposed to happen. And then I have to ask myself, can I willingly process that, is the question. Because if I
Yeah.
willingly process that, then you have a lot of frustration, anger, and resentment that you never thought was there flood out also in a space where you're not in the, you're frustrated already. So opening that
Yeah.
can of worms with this one, it's not a really
Yeah.
great plan. So I'm not trying to do that either. So there are a lot of things that I'm struggling to recognize because I'm not. I don't think I can handle the emotional floodgates that comes with that. I
You
can still
know,
go on, yeah. But so I'm gonna let you
no,
talk.
well, and I'm intentional about this, man. There's a reason I give you that floor because we talk about this. This really is, for me. I'm very passionate about this being a safe space and a safe place. You know what I mean? And I talk about this all the time. That where we are truly is molded by the environment that we come up in.
Right.
We had that conversation earlier as a child, man. Our parents, the people that are around us, the people that are our guardians, when we're voiceless, are the ones that are responsible for taking care of us, for protecting us, for pouring and nurturing us, for cultivating us. And when the beat is missed on any of those particular areas, man, we do we are affected by that.
Hmm.
Sadly, in some ways, we're infected by that. And so we're carrying these idiosyncrasies as grown-ups, as adults. And we may become a mature person in terms of managing our money, or being a go-getter and establishing business. But how we do in relationship, how we communicate in a healthy way, if we've never gotten that, man, you know what I mean? That's why, and I wrote this in the book, you can go in a classroom, or I'll backtrack. You can look at two different family dynamics. You can see a child who comes up in a household where the parents and their siblings communicated openly, talked a whole lot. Then you go to another household where a child is never communicated to. Maybe he's a latchkey kid, comes home every day, feeds himself. As a young child, as a toddler, no one's ever had regular conversation. They just sat him down and they went about their business. And now you're looking at this kid as a high schooler, and he's a recluse. He's staying to himself. He doesn't know how to. People may look at him as awkward, and socially disconnected. Nobody just becomes that way. That is created. And if you are not cultivating those areas, now you become the adult who struggles in certain areas until you get therapy in some way. And sometimes that therapy comes from the form of a professional. Sometimes that therapy can come in the form of a spouse. My wife has been a therapist for me on so many occasions. We had a conversation today, man, where we're stretching. And she knows when she gets me because I'm just quiet. I ain't got no words.
That's
I
good.
gotta sit there and I have to process it. You know what I mean? And so what we're dealing with here, man, in this conversation with you, man, is, you're able to get this out. This is stuff that you probably don't feel comfortable saying to your mom or your dad. It's probably a conversation you don't feel confident and comfortable to say. I can have a one-on-one talk, a transparent dialogue with my siblings to be able to express how I feel. And but in this type of conversation, you're able to have healing. You know what I mean? And so, what your brother's fiance, I know you hate that word, said, man, is an open invitation. And I said this on another pod, that I think is very important, that we lean into that curiosity, lean into that conflict rather than run away from it. If we decide, I heard a wise man say that, I hope I say this correctly, that curiosity and let's see, the curiosity and conflict can't live in the same place. There's a word he used to counter curiosity, but if you're willing to be curious, it dispels the worry and the fear of that conflict, because now instead of me running away, putting up this guard and this wall, I'm willing enough to step into it and say, what can I get from it? What's here? What's here?
Right.
Rather than me saying, I don't want to go down that road. Leaning into that, man. Be curious enough to say, I've tried enough in terms of putting up the walls. Let me lean into it. What's the worst that could happen? That the
Oh,
relationship doesn't become what I imagine it could be, or that I heal from in some way.
so I'm interested. What do you mean? Explain a little bit what you mean by, because I have something I wanted to say, but I wanted to make sure I understand. What do you mean by the lean into the wall? I guess maybe I said that wrong, but
Into
the
that
wall that you were talking
curiosity.
about. Yeah. So yeah, expound a little bit on that, so I make sure that I have an understanding, because I have what I think I understood, and then I
Yeah.
wanted to make sure I clear. Yeah.
Well, let me give an analogy because I think it paints a clear picture. If my wife and I, if me and Shay are having conflict, and for instance, um, say we disagree on a parenting style,
Okay.
rather than me getting offended, if I develop, and I say develop because this is a practice that you have to continue until that muscle's worked. It doesn't just come on. You're fighting against your own nature. So
Hmm.
if my mindset and the practice that I put in place is, okay, rather than me get offended by what she's saying, let me ask the next question. That's something I live by. I live
Okay.
by asking the next
Okay.
question. Why do you feel that way? Okay, then give you an opportunity to explain why you feel that way, rather than me trying to prove my point. So in the scenario we're talking about here, where we're talking about receiving love, and I'm gonna give you an opportunity to talk, bro. But I want to get this out. The uncomfortability that comes with receiving love because you felt like in many ways you didn't get that, or having a healthy relationship with people without being hurt or being abused or taken advantage of. If I start to develop the practice of giving that opportunity and asking that question and saying, "What are your intentions?" Okay, all right. Rather than me trying to interpret everybody's intentions, what are you trying? Okay, all right. I hear what you're saying. You're saying that you're willing to offer. Don't run away from my love. Give me an opportunity to receive that love. What do you mean by that? And there may be something there that piques your interest, man, and you lean into it. It's about giving that opportunity, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. I wanted to, I think that last part was what I wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing, because I understood everything after that. That was my first understanding. But I wanted to ask if there was more to it, because I don't want to just jump to my conclusion and then miss out on that last little bit of nugget. Um, I've always had this curiosity. I will say this. Maybe this would kind of paint a little bit of picture. Um, my relationship with my father, I didn't understand his background at the time when our relationship started being a little strenuous. I remember the one moment where he had been upset at me, and the second time he kicked me out. Was it the second or the third? I lost track. So the second or the third time he had kicked me out. Um, I was
So
upset
nonchalant,
for,
so nonchalant about it, man.
it was like
But go
four
ahead.
different times, man. It was four different times. I just forget. My memory's sometimes shot. I think it was the second time, but when I was upset for maybe a week. But I remember I was laying in the bed one night, and I was never a parent. So this is the little scenario that I came up with. I'm not a parent. I don't understand what it's like to have this. with this day and age, you can let your kids go to school and one of them won't make it home, another will make it home. So you got that PTSD worrying all the time, are they okay? Are they safe? Some days you're just trusting the Lord to do things. Other you're having a little panic attack. So I learned that you parenting is like walking a landmine field at times because you can make one wrong step and all of a sudden your kids are angry at you and you're trying to repair it but also still trying to maintain some resemblance of principle, and then you have to ask yourself, is your principle worth losing this argument or winning this argument? So I call it, like I said, I call it the landmine. Again, I'm not a parent, which is
You're
why
not a
I
parent?
thought
Because that's a really good one.
that's a really good
You've
one and we're
captured it pretty
doing
well
great so
there.
far. Yeah,
Continue.
so and that was the paying attention part because again, this was young me, so this isn't like I'm learning this now. This was young. Like I don't know what it's like. You could get a phone call and you're trying to defend your kid, but you're also trying to instill principle. You're trying to make sure that your kid isn't always outside playing, but you also want them to be a studier. You want them to have some resemblance of focus, drive, purpose. You want to instill that. You also want to be able to develop, grow relationship, and you're going to say something in the teenage years that they're not going to understand. How are you going to resemble your love without always being upset? Are they going to associate your frustration all the time as not loving them through their imperfect moments? So there's a lot of things that kind of stir up, and you can see those resemblance in even certain friendships. Sorry, these headphones are staying on, but so I thought about that, and then it's at that point I realized that I couldn't always stay upset at my dad or my mom because of their decisions. They're figuring it out. Nigeria, America, old tradition, different environment, and then adding parenthood on top of that. No thanks. So it gave me a lot of grace. I think where I started to lose that grace, honestly, is when you continue in that cycle. And then as I learned the background as to what led um, up to up to where you are now and how your parenting style became, I still struggled with grace because you're not going to go to heaven and look at God in the face and say, look at my background, that's the way that I am. You got to work on that. You can't rest on your laurels and say it's just the traditional way and continue this cycle of hurt. And I didn't want to. And I shared with you, I created both, even with my mom. Like I created a let's have a conversation, but this isn't one of those like, because you are my elder I'm gonna let things slide as if they don't bother me. And that's the other part, is that whenever you're trained to respect your parents, they oftentimes remove the ability to be able to make firm decisions. So then when you get out in the world, you tend to be a little bit of a pushover, people pleaser. So you don't have to deal with that because some people don't know how to deal with that. So I'm learning my imperfections and the things that I struggle with by unveiling some of those things and those decisions that my parents had made or my siblings had made, most importantly, that I have made. But I've always left the room to have a conversation. I don't know if it's pride. I don't know if it's shame. I don't know if it's both mixed together. But that conversation never gets had, I guess that's the word to say.
Yeah.
So, and I struggle with letting things slide because now I've interpreted as we didn't have this conversation. You now text me the next day as if nothing we discussed ever happened. And you do that repeatedly. I can't move forward until we address this issue. It is no good morning. Then I ask myself, how does that translate to, a relationship? Am I going to hold on to something? Can I let it go? Am I willing to move forward? Is it worth losing, worth hurting more of our relationship? So I'm trying to assess what that looks like. And it's hard, especially when you're also taught to like need other people's approval because again, you're trying to get over that hump, but then you're being pushed back by their approval. So and it's like, I want to learn, I want to get out of that cycle. So
Yeah.
again, going back to what I said was like I struggle with that aspect because we haven't addressed the issue. You're saying hi to me like nothing ever happened, and that does that repeatedly. And I told him I'm not moving forward. There is no good morning, hey, how you doing? What's been going on? I'm not responding to any of those messages until we address this issue. And since you refuse to address them, there's nothing for us to discuss at this point. And some people can argue and say like you're being a little too critical, a little too harsh. I'm like, there's you know, there's been too much time that has gone past. And when there's an issue with an odd with a fellow brother or a fellow sister, the goal is to be able to, hey, deal with that issue as quick as possible because you don't want them to sit with that. You don't want the seed of
It's a
discord.
biblical principle.
It's a biblical principle, but it's subjective
There's a
to
reason
human
that,
nature. It's subjective to
yeah,
human nature. Then you
yeah.
got, the overzealous theologians, or I won't say theologian, churchies like to, pretend that that's not an issue. And then they like to perpetuate that, it's not that big of a deal, sweeping it under the rug. My favorite part is you got to show them grace, and grace doesn't absolve you of consequence. And that's the part that, again, that we don't push. You look at that, he's like,
No,
oh,
let me jump in. We double dutching.
go
Let me
for
jump
it.
in because
Go for it.
there's two terms that are probably obviously common to you, but that has become even more popular in today's age. The first term is emotional intelligence. It's very important, emotional and relational intelligence, where and in addition to that, self awareness. That's something I've been talking about a lot lately, especially with my wife, especially in issues in terms of family dynamics and ministry dynamics.
Hmm.
Because now we're in this space where we're trying to figure out exactly what you said. Where are the boundaries that I set in life? And does a role or a title that somebody holds in my life give them the autonomy to go past those boundaries? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And so, especially when we're talking about family, if you're causing me some emotional or mental harm, where can I set that boundary to say I want to have a relationship with you, but you keep violating these boundaries? You know what I mean? With,
Right.
with someone who's a stranger, I can put up a wall. I could unfriend you. I never have to see you again. But with family, there's a certain space that you may hold in my life that I have to be able to set some healthy boundaries. I can't completely disconnect with you. Maybe you can, um, depending on what the extreme is in that relationship. But ultimately the goal is, we have this innate desire in terms of family, and friends and relationship period, because God developed us as relational beings. We want relationship,
Right.
you know.
Right. It's and I agree with that. I think where, I'm sorry, but when you were talking about family, I had to take that in, like family. What does that actually mean to me? And it's a complete struggle, for me. I think that we talked earlier, and I think the biggest thing is that I've been very understanding in where each individual people in my family and where they're at, mentally, my parents' upbringing to even our upbringing and how it shaped us. And I spend a lot of time understanding it. And I get to a certain place where even though I understand it, I have to decide if I'm gonna let it hurt me. I think that was the biggest thing. I grew, one of those drill sergeants told me like you grow up to toughen up. You don't really feel a whole lot of like the emotions that you're supposed to feel because you've been shaped to not, you know, I'm trying to be respectful. One of the biggest struggle again is that, my family doesn't like me talking about, family drama or whatever is going on. So then I don't get to talk about it, and then it never gets resolved, and then you ignore it. And it's just I'm trying to get over that. So essentially, I understand again where my siblings are at, where my father and where my mother is at. The struggle that I'm having with that is they utilize that as if there's no consequences to the actions. Like, I don't have the right to not want to speak. I Setting up those boundaries seems a little far-fetched, like, and now they're learning to, I guess in a way respect that. Um, but I think where I'm at right now is even in my therapy sessions, my goal had always been to remove obligation. I get this triggered response like once you see them, it's like you're what's the word, conditioned to
Yeah.
do certain things and to respond with because you've been obligated to do them and you've been conditioned to do them. So it almost feels so voluntary that you're trying to stop that. And I've been successful at removing a lot of the obligations that come with, being in my family. Um, I think that where I'm at is I have lived a life where I've let things roll off my shoulder so long that I had a situation with my mom where I did dig a little bit deeper, and she ended up responding in a way where it stopped the conversation. And I had a choice at that moment if I was going to let that roll off my shoulder like I typically do, or I'm going to let it affect me. And for years I've always like I've had the beautiful capability, I call it beautiful because it has its perks, to let things roll over my shoulder. And now if I'm accepting that to hurt me, I'm now utilizing an area of my life where I never got to utilize. So if a person who's never here before steps out into traffic for the first time, it could be a lot overwhelming to them. So when I'm choosing to accept hurt and and everything that kind of comes with that, there's a lot of lashing out and anger and frustration. So then there's people that look at me and say, "You're too over emotional." And this is where you don't even know how I was raised or how I grew up, but you're so very quick to open your mouth and talk about me and how I'm, this over emotional. Again, it's not taking away from it because it's an over emotional response. But if you're using that to solidify how you not taking the opportunity to minister, because obviously if you had the wisdom to know it is an over emotional response, you supposedly as my brother and sister in Christ is supposed to help guide and lead, but you're comfortable just sitting in the background, pointing fingers and, look, everybody, this is exactly what I was talking about. So then I had to ask myself, do I want to release these emotions and be labeled this? Because then that's another battle that I don't need in my journey of processing what I feel. So then I decided to retreat. I spent some time in a retreat, but I've gotten to a place where um, I once I tell God I want to commit to doing something, and typically I don't back out. Like I just enter in. I may sit in the corner and never get it coming into the center of the room, but I'm not opening that door again and going back out. I opened it, I stepped in, I closed it. We're not going back. We're here. We can be in
Yeah.
the corner for a little bit. We're gonna have to get out there, but we're just not going back. It's just not happening.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. I had to decide today if I wanted to let all these accusations really hurt me. I had to decide if I was going to let it affect me the way it was, even though I knew that my character for the last 2 years, my character has been more challenged than it's ever been in my entire life, and it's only gotten worse in year two. So I had to decide if I'm, doing something so right that the devil has to create this kind of situation to to push me. It almost worked. I'll tell you that it almost worked. I guess it's one of those. Is that the best you can do? Moment. It's like this is the best that I can
And
do.
and and that's I love your tenacity. Some people are afraid to say that. They're afraid to say, "Is that the best you can do? Give me your best shot."
No,
And the thing is,
no. I
this taps back into the self awareness thing. Like self awareness, I look at it from two standpoints. Number one, everybody, all of us, we're all going through this process of understanding who we are. This dichotomy, this human dichotomy we're thinking about, where we're trying to figure out how to navigate life have healthy boundaries, healthy relationships with people, but at the same time also recognize that, yo, you need to be self-aware. You over there have to be self-aware, and I really don't have the ability to change or turn the light bulb on for you. I can do what I can in terms of the relationship
Hmm.
that we have with each other, but ultimately, I can't make you aware of who you are. I can't make you aware that you have bad communication. I can't make you aware that you continue to hurt me if you're not willing to lean into that yourself. And so, the most important piece, man, I think you're doing the work. I really feel like you're doing the work. Number
It doesn't
one,
feel like it.
well, the thing is, well, the most important piece is this: if you put it upon yourself, and I'm gonna get as many say churchy, but at the end of the day, we know who we believe in. You can't fix you, bro. There are pieces of the process that you have to do, but once you get to this space where it's like, God, I'm plateauing. I'm doing what I can to set boundaries. I'm doing what I can to build and mend relationships. At this point, I have to rely on you. I even have to rely on you to do the things that I'm aware I need to do. So in terms of the most important piece in all of this is to find yourself getting into this space of settling in with being okay with me being me. You know what I mean?
That's
And
a
that's
struggle.
I know it
That's a
is.
struggle. Let's
I
just
know it
call it
is.
what it is. It's a
But
struggle.
but but the reality is that I read this quote, man, that any man who set out to do anything great did it at great peril. Now, what does that mean? We look at somebody like in Dr. King in the civil rights movement. Does that mean that our life we don't get to see the fruition of our work? No. But the reality is understanding that in order for me to achieve or overcome this great mountain, there may be a challenge. There may be a challenge, but the reality is that God made it very clear that the mountain that you're trying to overcome with family isn't something that you in and of yourself have to do. You don't have to move the mountain. God will be your strong tower. God will be your helper. God will be the one who um, who has the ability to. And my wife and me and Shay say this all the time. God, get your kids, get your daughter, get your mom. I mean, get your son. My mother, my father, my brother, my sister. Go get your kids, because I don't have the ability to change them, and you're their father. So I take my hands off of them. If I have to love them from a distance, also need you to help me with being comfortable with doing that. And so that's a daily process. It's a daily process where you're continuing to lay it before his feet until you find yourself becoming more comfortable with making the choices than you are being uncomfortable with making those choices. And you're right, bro. It's an everyday thing, man. It's as long as folks are in your life, you're always going to be in a position where sometimes you gotta fight against how you feel, how that innate nature to do certain things.
It's I agree with you. I think there's a lot of things. I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and a couple of things that come into mind. One of them was I remember I was in a therapy session a couple of weeks ago, I think about 3 weeks ago, and it was just I just felt the need to like just let go. Um, so being raised, you can't not know the answer to something. Why is this here? I don't know. And then immediately we both know what happens after that for context. But then you do that repeatedly, my mind says like I have to know. I have to understand. So inevitably, subconsciously, I taught myself I have to do it myself. There wasn't any God in there because there wasn't like you got to let God teach you. But then that also goes to the fact that there wasn't a lot of guidance. So I inadvertently taught myself that I don't need God. But now let's just call it what it is. There is no like, I like God here. No, 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 no. I don't need God.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what it is. I end up teaching myself that. So it gets to a point where I spend a good season of trying to do things to myself only to end back in the same place. Then instead of, all right, God, I'm gonna let you in this time, it's like, nah, we just gotta do it better. Tosin 2.0. We got this
Yeah.
time. Here's the mistake we did. Here's that. We subtract this, so remove these people, and we're good. Watch this. Same cycle. Okay, so here we go. We're learning. We're like Ultron. We're figuring it out. We remove this equation, add this 1 - 2 = 3. We're doing it. Let's try trial around three. Right back into the same spot. And then I think, back to that therapy session where it's like, just let go. And I am learning, even with my creativity, there's that aspect that doesn't allow God to just move. Just, I'm not saying that it wasn't a season where I did. I think that I got tricked back into doing it myself. I got Thanos into this. So,
Yeah.
definitely the biggest gemstone is called pride, and I snapped my fingers and I ended up back in the same spot. All right. So, so I, I'm in a season right now where I'm learning to let go. Um, Learning that if even though I have the right answers, maybe it's okay to say I don't know. Maybe learn something
That's
a little
good.
different.
That's
And
good.
that's not the biggest struggle because there's a mindset of like I'm just letting go. I think where I'm at is I've learned to adapt and to be tenacious, and I say that with a little bit of pride because I can't get away with it. Um, I've I'm not really um, ashamed to say this, but there was a season that in order for me to keep going, especially in not having the right environment, I would trick my brain into asking myself, like, what would you tell somebody in this position? And then I'd go do it. And then whenever I'd share, hey, this is what's going on with me, and they would like try to give me advice, but they don't know that my mind has already told myself that's what I need to do. I'm just doing
Hmm.
it, but you caught me in the moment where I messed up, and all of a sudden you think I'm not doing any of the things that I've already taught my. It just became snowball into other people, and I just like, you know what? Maybe I just need to separate myself from people, and I've already got this thing covered. So I kept to myself, and tricked my brain. We've made a lot of progress, and we digressed a lot. So um, it's getting to a place where again my environment right now is crucial, and if I'm choosing this season to be vulnerable and to let go, I am exposing myself and allowing the most sensitive part of me that's never been utilized as often as I should to now
That's good.
being exposed to the sun and other harmful bacterias, and it's not a really great plan at this late in the
But
stage. And
as you're talking, let me jump in. As you're talking, I have this picture in my head of because what you're doing, man. I don't know if you realize this, bro. You're not an anomaly. You are just one of those people who are bold enough to say the things that many of us do, and some who are not self-aware that we do it. You know what I mean? I have this picture of a room. So the first part, the two phases of healing are first recognizing that the room is dirty, and the second phase is to start to clean it up and remove those things that are dirty. And so the process that you're going on, man, in terms of identifying this stuff, like I got some spaces that I have to let go of these things. I need to be clean in this particular area. I need to be able to have healthy community because the community that I have, the village that I have is sick. And so how do I repair that? How do I surround myself with people that are pouring into me, that are edifying me, that are helping me build up, versus staying in this space where the people that are around me are not pouring into me. They're actually leeches and are taking and extracting everything that I have away from me. I need to be able to be invested in rather than people asking me to be an investor. So things like that are crucial to you cleaning up that space. You know what I mean? And that's a process. I think sometimes we think things are clean and you're gonna lift up the couch and you're gonna see some dust bunnies under there. It's like I thought I cleaned all this up. It's a dust. It's one more dust bunny. Let's clean it up.
so even when you're talking about cleaning it up, I think I've also the self-awareness is something that I've been very much practicing. And the goal is to be able to not look so much at other people, but look at how I'm receiving other people and exposing more of like something inside myself that I didn't even know was there because then that would teach me how to, connect with other people who may or may not be in that position or are going to be in that position. Because then I can also
Mm.
realize, okay, so if I learned this is what I do, how did I get here? Okay, so now that I know how I got here, am I seeing somebody going through that same direction? And then they look at me like, how did you know? I'm like, okay, I've definitely gone through this and I know how this is going to play out. I'm going to tell you, you're probably going to do it anyway. When it come back to this conversation, know that when we do, I still love you, but remember, you were warned. So I have those, but those, I think, where I'm at, it's like a battle because when you become self aware and you start to clean up, then you know um, you start to get tired of cleaning up because
Mm-hmm.
you're the one ending up doing it. Then you stopped cleaning up one area, then somebody looks at you and say, see, you never cleaned up this area. And I'm like, where were you when I started cleaning up this area? But you're now focused on when I stopped cleaning up in this area. And this really goes back to getting to know somebody, is that I'm just exhausted. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to put myself in a position where I am, connecting with the people around me. That's why me and your brother for a very, short season doesn't mean it's gone yet, but spend a good solid, 3 to 4 days, spending some time with him because I needed that encouragement because I didn't have that encouragement. I'm usually, the one releasing it from my reserves, and then trying to, get myself to a place, and now becomes, well, you always do this. I don't understand why you did this before. Why can't you do it now? And now growing up without able to have a choice. Now my environment is also robbing me of my choice. And I would love to be upset. I also understand why they do it. And I try my very best to communicate not to the situation that's in front of me, but to how they got to that position so they can do better, so that they don't repeat that same pattern. But I also neglect that I am human and I feel things, and I typically
Yeah.
rationalize the reasons why I don't feel. And because I've never had a safe space to release that, and it
Yep.
affected my art because I wrote "Atheist Mind of a Christian" because of the whole church dichotomy. And now, where a lot of my best creativity, or even the best parts of me that wants to create, can't do that now because it spent all of its energy trying to sustain the emotions that it didn't know how to control, that there's not enough to give back to me. And when there wasn't enough to give back to me, then I have people challenging my character in a space where I don't even have enough to fight for myself. Now I have to spend the very little that I have reserved to clear my character, which I was it took your brother months to convince me to fight for my character because I wouldn't do it. It's not worth my time and energy to argue with people because I know that's what it's going to. I saw a quote and it said, if you have a problem with me, no, hang on. It said, if you have a problem with me, and you have my number, call me. If you don't have my number, you don't know me well enough to have a problem with me. And I thought that was relatively I'm tempted one day to put that as a Facebook status, but in this season
Oh,
right now,
wow.
I'm gonna trigger a whole
Wow.
bunch of conversations, and I'm not fighting any of you in my comment section. I'm just gonna like turn off notification and uninstall Facebook. You don't know who you're playing with. This I will. I'm not. You play chicken with me, you'll lose because I'm just never gonna move. I'm just gonna. It's gone. I'm just there. But that was the quote. Now, like I like that. That's true. The people who have my number don't call me, and the people who don't have my number, I don't understand how. You don't even know me, and the people who have my number don't even call me because they don't even know me. So how are you going to still have a problem with me? So yet again, I'm unreserved, and I look at I had this woman. She has Jamie King is her name. She has a podcast that she reached out to me and considered me being the co-host. She had texted me about a week ago and told me like it's time, and I knew exactly what that meant. Because I knew this was the around the time where I knew that I had to enter into my ministry, and I set up, some stuff to, make some content. And I just realized I don't even have the energy to do this. And I have to ask myself, am I willing to fight for this? And I don't even have the energy to even conceive that thought, to actually dive deeper into that thought. And then I have to push myself to do it. Then if I'm going to do it, I'm trying to enjoy it, because I know that if I don't have that desire, that passion, I'm going to critique the mess out of it to the point where it no longer exists. And that desire, that purpose to drive to be able to not just create the content, but why am I doing it? Who is this for? Why did I chose this edit or the voiceover or the music? It's the intentionality has to be there, and I don't got it in me. I don't have it in me, and I'm beat. I'm tired. I'm so beat. I can't even produce tears to process my own emotions. So I'm
This
just
is all I hear
completely
is rest.
I
All I hear is
rest.
rest. And I'm not going to tell you what that is. That's a word I've said to you on many occasions. But that discovering that rest is a journey. Man, I hate to talk like a philosopher.
Too late. You're
And
already
and
there. I don't know
and
why
it's
you say
yeah,
I don't
and
like
so
to,
surface.
and then your
There's
entire
I
verbiage
know,
is
man,
nothing
but the
but a
reality is
philosopher.
I hear your heart, and it cries out. I just need rest, and you know I'm looking for mental, emotional, even in some ways some spiritual rest. I need restoration, and so I'm going. I'm let me pivot. Let me pivot.
Oh,
I'm gonna do
sorry.
something unorthodox here.
Okay,
Let me pray right now, bro. Let me pray.
I like this.
Father, I thank you for my brother. I thank you for what you created him for. He is an answer to a problem, a solution to something in the world. That's what you created all of us for. And so, God, we know in and of your nature, you never want anything stopping us from doing what you created us for. And so I lift my brother up right now. I hold him before you. I pray right now that you allow him to feel your embrace, to feel your love, to find rest in your arms today, oh God. I pray, God, that even his sleep is different. I pray that, Lord, as he does the things that he does in purpose, that you're allowing his mind to find rest, even as he's working, God. I know against that there just sounds like an oxymoron naturally, but God, you have the ability to help us find peace and rest in our doing. And so I pray right now, God, that as he's doing things purposefully, he's finding rest in you. I pray to God when he rests naturally, that there is a restoration in his body, in his mind, in his spirit like never before, that he comes to alive in the spaces in which he feels like he's dying. And Lord, you're also his advocate. And so I pray right now that you begin to change hearts of those that are his adversaries. I pray, God, that you allow men and women to rise up as his advocates naturally, God, to be his spokespersons. I pray that, Lord, that you allow his name to go into places where there's favor before him, places that he doesn't even have to step into. I declare it right now. I pray that you give him in many ways, God, what we consider maybe a Midas touch. I pray that everything that he touches is blessed by you, and that the assignments that you place before him, God, are blessed and that you breathe upon. And I thank you for it. I thank you for it right now that you're changing mindsets, that you're building relationships, and that you're causing restoration. And give him wisdom, wisdom to see danger ahead, wisdom to set healthy boundaries, and the peace to stand behind those walls of boundaries. And we honor you, and even for that being done now. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. As we're talking, man, that's all I kept hearing. I kept hearing, I believe I kept hearing God saying he needs rest. He needs rest, and he can find rest in me. And so I believe he's doing it, bro. I believe that there is a shift happening in your life. And you're a go-getter. That's just you by nature, man. You go, 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 go. And so I believe what God is going to do supernaturally is he doesn't have to change your nature, but he can restore you in you being you. That's the beautiful thing. You know what I mean? Like that's a beautiful thing in what God does. And I know that you've been stepping into some beautiful things in terms of your purpose, and you're finding refuge in those things. That's the stuff that you're finding in your creativity. And I believe that God is going to take that to the next level. I believe that you're going to see a shift in your character being restored. And it's not something that you have to do. He's going to do it, bro. He's going to do it. You just found
I
rest.
I'm praying it so because I'm not so my thing is I'm not the typical kind of person to go try and fight to restore my character. I always wanted to practice to like God is the one who affirmed me. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna go to heaven and we're gonna have this, he's the one that created me. So I don't have to prove my character to him. And I always kept that mindset because what I'm trying to accomplish, I'm gonna get a lot of situations like this. But I wanted to get the mindset that the only person that I have to atone for is God. So this is not where my focus is at.
That's real.
Um, so, and I value, and I think that it's actually ironic because when you talk about rest, my company is called Good Sabbath. So let that sink in
Come
for
on,
a
man.
second. So,
Come on, man.
and,
Come on.
and
And I'll go ahead.
no, go ahead. You want to say it? Go ahead, go
The
ahead.
thing is that, the thing is that any great movement, the forerunners of that movement had to get that revelation first. It had to come from some space. And although the rest may be continual, it may have this continuity where it's like I'm continuing to rest. I didn't just find this resting place and I'm perfectly fine that I can go. You'll have an understanding of what that rest truly means, and then the content that you create out of good Sabbath, we can see, yo, this dude's coming from a rested place.
And it's interesting because I want to make sure that I haven't rushed into some commitments. And that was my biggest concern. I used to be in a space where I'm worried, like, all right, God, I got to do this because, bills got to get paid, man's got to eat.
Yeah.
Now I left my last job because I wanted to let go and what that looks like. I can feel the creativity, the tenacity, the fire, the dream that, your wife had. And, I'm not worried that the
If Shay
creative
dream about
aspect
you,
of it.
it's going down. You already know what it is.
Listen,
She don't just dream the dream.
listen. No, and I miss that because I used to dream. Now I'm like, I think God's like, you know what? I'm giving you. You're going on a hiatus. The dreams that I give you is going to be far in between. It is, it is what it is. What am I going to do? Fight God? That's a funny joke of the day. So you have a better odds fighting Mike Tyson. All right, moving on. I do. I would say this. I went to Surf City. Oh, well, Surf City. See, I'm looking at the camera. I messed up. That was my it's definitely me. I went to Surf City. It was in Michigan. This was a time where another turmoil had blown up, and I honestly wrestled to even go there. And I appreciate the Cove for even getting me because I volunteer at the Cove, and it's the after school program, for kids to learn about art and Jesus all together. And we went to Michigan, and we were at the sand dunes in Michigan, right near Salt Lake. And it was beautiful because I got to see, it wasn't so much the beach, it was just the sand dunes, feeling the sand between my toes, the wind, looking at the sky. I felt the weight lifted off. I don't know if you ever see my Instagram. I was like, this is a beautiful wilderness, but it's definitely not worth wandering for 40 years. I'm sorry. Y'all messed up.
Oh yeah, Shay called you on that. She was like, "Where you at, bro?" I remember that one. She commented on that.
Yeah.
Where you at?
I know. I had numerous people like, bro, where are you at?
We were
And I'm
looking for
like, in the
camels. We
wilderness.
thought you went overseas. Like, what's going
Listen,
on?
I would have loved it. I think that was my biggest takeaway. I would have loved it. Just like I just laid there on the ground. I was just like, I didn't care where the sand was. I don't care if it was between my toes, my legs, and my hair. I didn't care. I just wanted to. It felt good just to let go. I just want to sit there for like days,
Mm.
not years, days. You hear me, God? Days. I was
Yeah.
fine, just not years. I don't know what your kids were doing. They messed up. Get your kids, Jesus. Get your kids. But I enjoyed it. It felt like the weight lifted, and I've been trying to replicate that. I tried going to Ohio Pile, going out of town this weekend, and I'm trying to even try Lake Erie, just to replicate some resemblance of peace. And I'm trying to not isolate myself, but be comfortable in separation. Two very different contexts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
That's good.
need that peace again, and I was struggling connecting with people. It really felt like my environment, was just eating whatever is left that I had, and remember I was praying to God. I was like, I really don't want to be here. So like, God, I'm really struggling and I need a breakthrough. And just being with, those kids and connecting with them and growing, and them getting to know me and hearing them, it felt good to not connect with people that didn't believe in my character. It was refreshing, and I enjoyed that. And again, even though I stepped away from my job, I've still been feeling like I I haven't been able to replicate that. And mind you, I was at a place where I was with kids from like 8 a.m. to midnight. So if I wanted my alone time, I had to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm not an early bird person. I don't know why people want to wake up early. No one
No, you're
asked
not.
you. No one. No, I'm not, bro. I'm a fire breathing dragon. Don't call me at 6 o'clock in the morning talking about like, oh, by the way, I wanted that. Like, no, that could have waited 4 hours. When I was actually up. But I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning grudgingly, but just to wake up, go to the riverside and just sit there in this peace and quiet. I wasn't worried about maybe I should have got an extra 10 minutes of sleep. For the very first time, I could sit there, look at the thing that God created so beautifully and say nothing, like nothing. Do you know? And letting my mind just wander in the presence of this beautiful place. It was replicating that is extremely difficult.
I think
It
I
just
think I think I think that there's a very powerful lesson in this, man. The challenge, because what you're experiencing is a moment of rest, but you can have that every day.
mm-mm, you take that back. I'm kidding, but no, no.
You
See, you say I
you
can have that every day,
you
and
can have that every day. You can have that every day. See, there's a
it's
reason why. There's
possible.
a reason why the mouth focus area is why I brought you on here, because the challenge for you is changing your language. You can have rest every day. You can experience a rest in that same manner every day. But it really takes a shift in dynamic. It takes a shift in this. It takes a shift in how we speak. You know what I mean? Like, you can find that rest every day, and we all. I mean, Jesus himself had to be set apart. Like, how many times in the
Thank
Bible
you.
do we
Okay,
see him
so
get away from
yeah,
everybody?
he had. Listen, that's what
It's
I'm. You see what
necessary,
I'm talking
but I,
about? This man
but
woke up early.
I think the beauty that you experience when you've had these moments of separation is a way in which God can say that you can experience this every day. Like, I can give you this. You can find the same level of satisfaction in life and moments to breathe every day. It may not seem like it,
I
but you
don't.
can.
I don't disagree. I think one of the things that I need, it's not, like I said, it's not that therapy is not therapeutic. It's that I can feel that desire for a safe space. That's what I need that.
Exactly.
And I think
That's good.
I went to, like I said, as I went to Ohio Pal, trying to go to Erie in a couple of weeks. I don't care how cold it is. I'm gonna wear a hoodie. I'm gonna sit on that beach. You gonna find a way. Um, but what I felt like there's a lot that I'm holding on to, that I'm trying to let go, and I don't know how. Some days I really just don't know how to let it go. And I try to have the conversation. People often think that I need the advice, but I need to be able to get it out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in a space where I'm again showing the sensitive parts of unveiling the sensitive parts, allowing to be hurt when I can easily choose to let it go and roll it off my shoulder, and not in the sake of, oh, I will never let them see me break me. No, it just doesn't bother me. But because I've carried that for so long, I've ended up building walls that I didn't want to build, and now I want to tear them down because I don't want to build up walls. Because as much as I want to protect myself, there was a lot of things that I did not let come through, and all for the sake of protecting myself. And it spoiled a lot of good fruit. And I would say there's beauty in allowing things to hurt you. Being consumed by it is where the epic fail on our part comes into play. But there's
Yeah.
beauty about it. And the example is, it's not to sound cliche, but to paint a different perspective, is that you have a God that doesn't allow nothing we do. Our words don't carry enough weight to even match a grain of sand. Okay, paint this picture. Follow me if you're listening to me. Okay, here. This is the juice is flowing. But you have a God that can do anything, nothing. He created this world, and we are completely powerless. For him to come down from divinity to choose vulnerability. We don't even want this. Okay? But for him to
Yeah.
come down and choose to be betrayed, choose to be tortured. By the way, people don't know, but the way that Jesus was crucified, their own government banned that. That was only utilized for pirates and
Yeah.
complete scums of the. So you chose a torturous method because those people were vindictive. Okay, they created that method to find the most torturous way possible without actually losing blood. They invented that purposefully. So yet again, God chose. God chose to, in a place where he was not affected by a single thing, but there's nothing that we can do. He chose to step down and choose to be betrayed for 30 pieces of silver, which he could have asked for more. He's a bum. And he chose to die. He chose it. He said, I chose it. I choose to lay my life down and I choose to pick it up. So you choose to be vulnerable, to be sensitive. Like for Jesus to go away because I think it was John the Baptist that had got beheaded. And for him to choose to feel that hurt, for him to choose that pain, for him to choose to be grieved, to actually let sweat pour out of his glands, we don't even want that, but he chose that. And I'm choosing in the space to not let things, it's not let things to let things bother me. I'm choosing to let things bother me when I'm not comparing myself to Jesus, because I need you to get that. I need, for those people watching, I'm not comparing myself to Jesus. This is an allegory here. But to choose
Ain't
to
no wrong
let
with that.
things,
He's the standard. So, but carry on. Go ahead.
he's the stand. Okay, all right. See, look, my representative is speaking for me. Thank you. Hire him as my agent. Moving
Nah,
on.
you never said
I'm
you're Jesus. You just
choosing.
said you trying to live like him. You ain't say nothing wrong. Go ahead.
Listen, this is
We're not going to be
so.
selective on when Christ is the model and when he isn't. It's right there. It's written out for
Listen,
you. But go ahead.
listen. You should preach a sermon about that. So to choose to be vulnerable and let that affect me is recognizing that, people's inadvertently, I'm teaching myself and understanding that scripture where there's power in life and death in the tongue. If I don't take in vulnerability, I can't learn the fruits of it. And if I can't learn the fruits of it, why am I telling my youth to be vulnerable and I can't do the same? Being vulnerable is also allowing the hurt to teach you something. And I'm now choosing to let the hurt teach me something. It is excruciatingly painful. And because I am in a sensitive place, I'm choosing to be selective about now my own vulnerability. But when there's no safe space created for me, I'm left to hold that without proper guidance, which is why I reach out as often as I can so that I can remove it. This is why our conversation was earlier was so prevalent, because I was holding on to it. I was like, God, like you gotta get this out of me, like some, like, because if this stays in, you're gonna see a side of me that I don't even like. I don't even like,
Mhm.
and I had to get something from it. Like if I can find something small that I can take from it, it'll carry me until the next time it pops right back in my head. But at least it carries me so that I don't have to do that. But at the same time, it highlights the importance of my need for safe space. And I'm trying to create it. I'm persistent in trying to get it done, so I'm utilizing the little energy that I got to be able to find that, to create that, all again while defending my character, which golly is not. But again, I look at it as like this is where characters are typically forged. They're not forged in lilies and rainbows. They're forged in these moments. How am I going to handle this? And it's like I've reached my limit, and just when I feel like I reach my limit, I go in my bag and I'm like, we got a little bit more in the tank. We got a
Mhm.
little bit more in the tank. And then later on, I can be thankful to God for this, because regardless of how this plays out, I will always thank God for the struggles of this, because it is teaching me to extend, my limitations. Because if I'm entering into this ministry of creating such a broad dynamic of content, and with this company, Good Sabbath, I have to be able to take these allegations and be able to handle them in the best way possible, which is why, again, I'm never angry at God and say, how dare you put me in this situation? Don't you know what I've worked hard for? Like, no, it's like, thank you. Okay. Thank you for this struggle. Thank you for this pain. Thank you for this purpose. And I actually wrote a song with those lyrics. Thank you for purpose. Thank you for struggle. Thank you for pain. Thank you for purpose. I am free. Those are the lyrics to that, which is coming back full circle to bite me in the butt. But again, I have to,
Yeah.
but again, I have to push for this. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to be self-aware as much as possible, trying to create safe space, trying to balance letting my frustrations go out and then receiving the wisdom. And then I'm like, I'm good. Like your brother is a testament to that. I'll call him, I'll flip out, I'll cuss, I'll get it all out. And then he'll call me tomorrow, like, you good? Like, yeah, I'm good. What's up, bro? Let's do it. Like, but he's like, okay, well, because once I get it out and I get the wisdom, I got what I needed. I don't need to hold on to it anymore. It's like, all right, moving it, got it. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Throw the rest out. Doesn't mean I can't learn from those, but this is what I needed to be able to see what's in front of me. So trying to be as self-aware as possible is
Mhm.
hard, and I'm in desperate need for accountability. That's my biggest
Yeah.
thing. A lot of what some of my frustrations, even some of the struggles that I had earlier this year was because of the lack of accountability. And I need it. Like I'm a big I fight for it. I reach out, like hold me accountable, tell me I'm wrong. Great. Now, how can I learn from that? Let's do it. All right, great, great, great. Now that I got it, I want to
Well,
move forward. I want to press.
and it's also why Moses needed his arms lifted up by other folks. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to do everything by yourself, man. And you needed a Jethro to come around and say, "Hey,
You
let me
know,
provide some wisdom
and I
for you,
need
real quick."
And I needed Aaron. I need, and that's the other thing too. Is like I pray to God to be able to have someone to do life with. I can
Yeah.
always lean to you, your brother, and a couple other people. But y'all are married. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to replace
Yeah.
your wives. Trust me, that's definitely a
Yeah.
losing. But I'm trying to take it and in as often as I can.
Yeah.
Oh, however, I don't try to, some of the people that I'm hoping, like, let me grab them arm to arm and let's do this, but I don't want to force anybody. You need to be called into this space, and if you're called into the space, let's do it. But if you're not, there's some things in you that you have to mature out, and I can't risk you putting my company or my vision or hopefully our vision in jeopardy because you haven't spiritually matured in this area, and I can't risk it. I can't risk my company because it's not this company is not my company. It's for these people. So you certainly can't risk my mental stability at this point because you're gonna see the whole Nigerian come out, and man, it's not pretty, guys. It's just really not. And
Well, let me
I don't want that
let
for
me
you.
give you in 30 seconds, bro. If and I think you already kind of captured this because you said you're a person who kind of creates answers for your problems as you're asking people for help to get answers for your problems. But if you had to give another person advice for these exact struggles, man, that you're talking about in terms of needing a safe space, and they're bringing these things to you, what would your advice be to them?
Love yourself. I think that was, as you were saying, that's the first thing that came into mind. Because again, I haven't tricked myself in a while, so I appreciate this. Ha, gotcha. But I think one of the biggest things that I can honestly say is when you surround yourself with people that take and people that always question your character, you kind of lose your identity and things you actually love about yourself, and the things that always brings you joy because they're always trying to take that from you or rationalize the reason why you shouldn't be this person, or you're too hyper, you talk too much, you're too energetic, all you do is this, all you do is that, can I have this, can I borrow this, and it becomes not it's then it no longer becomes, man, bro, I love the way you smile, I love your hair, that was nice, it looks clean, like, bro, like that thing you did right there, bro, that was amazing, like that, like you don't hear that often because again, you it doesn't teach you to love the things about yourself and why you chose them. And I again putting myself in that environment, I'm trying to find the things that I love about myself. And as much as I can tell myself what I love, it's like it's only coming from me. And at some point that you try to tell yourself that it's not white noise anymore, and you were hoping to hear that, but then the pride in you struggles because it's like, I don't need other people to tell me who I am. I know who I am, but it's like you don't, like, but you have to tell yourself that because I may be ashamed to hear it, that I need to hear it from other people. And that's where I say, like, you get so far along that you don't let things affect you. You start to teach yourself you don't need other people, and this is where that
Wow.
wall comes in. Like, I do need that. Like, and it's like, you struggle because it's like, I don't need validation from other people, but then you don't get it enough to be able to carry yourself. But because you do need validation, but we
That's
always
good.
keep teaching people like you don't need to be validated. Like, no, you do, but you don't need to be consumed by it. Well,
That's
God
good.
doesn't care about your emotions. You just do it. No, He does. He created it. Obviously, He did. You just can't be consumed by it. So again, we don't teach the consumerism. We can't be consumed by the things of the flesh. This is what it actually means. This is what it actually teaches. But you do need it. You do need it. And we always tell, like, with women, like, is you're just a girl with daddy issues. But it's like you never congratulate a woman for marrying a man that reflects her father. We don't talk about the joys of that. But you'll be quick to tell somebody, like, yeah, you just a girl with daddy issues. Like, why is it that we go to the extreme ends and then preach on that, and then we don't talk about this journey that's right between here? And that is why the church inevitably teaches conditional love with all its teaching, because it doesn't teach you from the start of the journey, it doesn't show you the middle, it just tells you what the result is expected, and if you can't reach that expected result, you have failed, and now you've taught conditional love without knowing it. That's one of my biggest frustration, because again, I'm in a journey. You're not walking with me through the journey. You're reading the Bible and seeing the end result, and you're expecting me to be there, but you have not known how long I've been there, what I needed to be there. You don't even know if that in words of encouragement was what I needed to push through for the day or for the week. But you're very quick to tell me how I failed in this aspect. And again, I would love to say that I spend my time being upset at people who don't encourage me, but I also think, like, if they don't even know how to receive even all of the wisdom that I can share, but also they don't even know how to communicate that village is sick, and then I can't be angry at a village that doesn't even know it's sick. So then it just makes me look like it makes me look like I'm just yelling at or upset at people that don't know any better. So I again, then I get to rationalize my emotions. So it's this perpetuation of trying to get it right, and I struggle sometimes. I don't feel like I'm doing enough, and there's that always trying to be perfect because again, church is always teaching it, home life is always teaching you got to do this perfectly, but it's like I'm working through this. Like, where's that? Like, bro, like I see you doing it. Like I see you trying. Like, bro, that you've got better at this and you got better at that. I saw how you handled this situation. Oh, you would have done this, but you did this. I tell myself that. And I'm trying to keep myself afloat in this season, and all through some of these seasons, and it's hard. And then being ridiculed on top of that, and then hyper focusing on the world. Well, Jesus had to deal with it, so you got to deal with it. It's like, thanks. I didn't know that, but now that you told me, I realized that now I'm Jesus. Thank you, thank you. No, I'm not Jesus. Okay, that's why he's the model. Come back to me when you read the Bible. Okay, good talk. So trying to decipher when and where, and trying to encourage myself, it becomes a job in itself. And I spend more time rationalize the reasons and understanding people's perspective that I leave myself in the dust, then I leave myself at the bus stop, that I don't take care of myself or love myself, or and I get nervous about treating myself like, you shouldn't have done that. And it just, then I get people telling me like, you should be better with your this, better with your finances, you shouldn't have done this. And it's like, I'm trying to love myself. Can I do that today, or you want to take that away from me today? Just here you go, just take it. There you go, you're good. You feel better about yourself, great. Can I go back to my own little corner now and talk to God? Great, I'm gonna go do that. So it's relatively difficult, and I just want to encourage people, to love on the people that are always the strongest, because you know our pride gets in the way, where we talk about how we don't need anybody and we're good, but we do. And there's beauty in needing people. Again, don't be consumed by needing people, but there's beauty in needing somebody. Because I told this to a friend of mine. I said, you realize that your vulnerability is helpful to me, because I can learn from you. Like, you brought joy in sharing your struggles. Like, I pray to God, like, God, I really need a win. And my win at time isn't like getting $100 in my bank account, is being able to say, like, you just heard me, and this is what I needed to hear. Thank you so much for making the time. That encouraged me. That's better than $100 bill. And that's what I needed to, like, maybe motivate myself a little bit. But I want to have that opportunity if you didn't need that from me, or specifically God. So when you remove that need from somebody, um, you don't give that opportunity to you let someone be a blessing in your life. So, but that's what I'm saying. That's not a sermon that I hear on a Sunday. So don't ask me to go to your church. I'm good. I'm just going to read, and just read for context. And thank you, love you. Just don't do that. Don't do that. So this is me. This is me trying to battle through loving myself. This is,
Yeah.
trying to forge a better character in the most difficult conversations, releasing my anger to the people that can provide me wisdom, trying to enter into a space of loving myself, because I'm finally at a space where I want to create, but I haven't loved myself so that I can get to a place where I can give something to you without feeling like I'm extending myself. And I'm trying to do that in an environment where even the people around me aren't there, but I don't want to excommunicado them, but I'm limiting my communication, trying to open myself to the idea of someone actually like loving me and want to pursue marriage with me. And like, those concepts are so foreign to me, and I'm trying to not get so um hardened that I ignore those opportunities, or talk myself out of it, or hyper focus on it, and then it becomes consuming my everyday, because I'm trying to hold on to something that maybe I should have just allowed things to flow the way that they are, but I didn't want to lose it. Like, so it just becomes this dichotomy, and I'm trying to you know peel back the layer, as you would, and trying to put things together, and maybe love myself enough to let God in. Because again, if that First Corinthians 13, everybody loves to preach. But I'm gonna go to the first part, not the second part. Everybody throws in every wedding. It's like, if I can do all these wonderful things, these wonderful projects, but if I can't love, I am nothing than a clanging cymbal. And I'm like, that has to mean something to me. And if I
Mm.
continue to build walls, I can't reflect that. So all my projects that I do mean absolutely nothing if I can't do it out of love. And that's hard for me because I'm so hardened right now. That's one of the biggest things. I say
Yeah.
this to somebody, and I'll boldly say this. I struggle so much with connecting with people that I am not attached to anybody. Losing anybody in my life right now means absolutely nothing to me. I will not lose sleep. I will not cry. I will not be hurt. You want to stop talking to me? That's great. This is something that I get so often that when you stay long enough, it's like, all right, Jesus, let me know if I need to let go of this one too, because we know they don't stay long. But I'm just at that place where and that's attached with family. Nobody's safe from this, and I'm the kind of person, like, I can speak very freely about this. I remember sharing this with somebody, and they immediately got so hurt by that statement. It now became that entire friendship was invalidated. That if they said something or they did something, I could just walk away, and I have no desire to walk away. But if you choose to walk away, I'm not fighting for something you never wanted. So, and this is where I'm at. And other people hear that and they feel like all of what we've, established means absolutely nothing. I feel nothing at times. I really don't. And this is the courtesy of my upbringing, courtesy of the walls that I've built. And I'm the one to blame because I'm the one that allowed it to continue. It's not my parents' fault, it's not my father's fault, it's not my mother's fault, it's not my friend's fault. It's me. I'm the one that makes my own choices. So I have to learn to undo them. So
Man, you're hard on
I
yourself, bro.
I am because
And
I don't want to be
and
lazy on that.
no, it isn't that. I think you're too hard on yourself. I think you take
I don't know how
responsibility
not to
for.
be. I don't know how not to be. When my
I know,
accountability disappears,
I
it's
know
just it's
that. I, you asked for accountability, so I'm giving it to you.
oh great. Yeah. Good. I'm
Because the
leaning in. Go
reality
for
is,
it.
you say a whole lot, but there's a whole lot of things you take the blame for. So you put all this pressure on yourself to say, accept persecution, accept the struggle, while also saying that where I'm at right now is all my fault. But in reality, and we talked about this in the very beginning, some of the walls that we have in our lives were created by the people, man. They really were. And so, and some of those walls you can't tear down. Some of those walls you do have to say, God, I give it to you. Like it is what it is. You know what I mean? And so, um, you set a very high standard for yourself. I think it keeps you in a place of humility, but you also put yourself in a position of condemnation, self-condemnation. And so, but that's why we have a relationship, man. Because I'm always going to tell you, number one, you have beautiful hair, man. You do. You have beautiful hair. No, you said nobody ever told you that. Um,
Um,
this whole time I was waiting for a window, like I'm gonna tell him you got beautiful hair. Uh, but no, man.
I
No,
just got
no, for
done
real, man.
yesterday.
For real, you are much more than what you do. Um, and so I'm looking forward to the day when you break out of the chrysalis, that
Oh, that's a
cocoon.
big word.
Um,
Chrysalis. I like that. Sorry, go ahead.
you break. It's not it's a
I got
kindergarten
him.
word.
I got him
Uh,
to break character.
you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
when you break out of that cocoon, man, and begin
Uh-huh.
to see who you are. You know what I mean? And so I remember watching the Kanye documentary. Shay and I talk about this all the time. Watching his documentary and how he used to parade around and say, I will be a mogul. I will be um, my name will be next to Picasso and
That sounds like
the
Kanye.
Sistine Chapel and things of that nature. And so obviously we can look at it, man. He's pompous. He's arrogant. There's a piece out of that we have to be able to take. There's an element there that he recognized the greatness that was within him and what he was purposed to do. There could be a whole lot of argument, but what we see is that there is in fact productivity that came out of his confidence. How much more confidence can we have as men and women of God, as people created, knowing that, man, I got kingdom work. And God, you didn't create me to have a life of struggle. You didn't create me to have a life of oppression. You didn't create me to have a life of an uphill battle. Yes, there will be hills. Yes, there will be valleys. But my life should not be consumed of hills and valleys. And when I'm in those spaces, there's a certain level of contentment you allow me to have. There's a humility that you allow me to have when I'm standing on a mountaintop of victory. And there is a contentment and peace that you allow me to have when I'm in the deepest valley. And, so I see the ups and downs that you have in this process. But I'm telling you, man, you're not alone. You're not on an island. I'll never let you be on that island. You know what I mean? And you have a handful of people around you that see what you do, and we pay attention to who you are, and we're going to always be there to pour that wisdom into you, man. For any ladies watching, he is single. I got to put this out
Stop
there.
that. Put it in. All right, you better cut this
Preferably,
clip.
preferably
Cut this clip
Nigerian.
out.
You know,
Cut this clip out. Everybody's trying to.
I had to
Everybody's
do
been
it.
trying to set
I
me
had
up.
to do
No,
it.
you and your brother, man. I swear to God, your brother more than you. But every time we are out, he be like, "I go staring at you, man. That may be your wife." I'm like, "Listen, did I? I
Um,
didn't get the phone call. I didn't get the phone call.
hey,
You
you'll
ain't gonna
know
get the
it,
phone call if you
you'll
don't
know
get.
when it
You don't
is. I'm
know.
just putting it out
You
there.
don't know. Yeah.
You know, Good
Mm-hmm.
Sabbath Studios, the Tosin Adebayo at Tosin Adebayo. Just putting it out there for so anybody who wants to reach out to you, it's available. It's there. But you
No
have
light
greatness
skins.
in you, bro. You have greatness in you. So as we close out real quick, man, what's to come? What do you have on the agenda? What can we expect from Tosin Adebayo, from Good Sabbath Studios, et cetera, et cetera?
Oh, you're asking a very loaded question.
I know, because there's
Um,
some stuff you can't release yet. I get that. I get that. But you
yeah,
could.
there's some stuff that I can't release, and God just gave me two different TV shows ideas automatically just this week, and it's just like I want to start on them, but I can't. I think I wanted to work on two small projects. My goal is to do that mockumentary. I just need to, like I said, I want to get into a space where I can, freely write. Um, I That's the big project, semi-big project that I want to do, the mockumentary. But I wanted to do Miracle Moments. That's one that I want to do. I wanted to do the working title is called The Hurt Locker, and the
Don't give
idea
away
is
all your
what.
juice now. Don't give away all your
Oh,
juice.
this is just
Come on,
before
man.
coffee.
Don't give it away.
I will. All right. So the concept is Hurt Locker. You're just gonna have to wait for what that one is.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely that one. Ultimately I'm trying to see where God wants to take it. Because one of the ones that just came again to mind is taking a couple of my poems and actually creating the series that I wanted out of it. I'm not going to spoil any visuals idea that I have. Honestly, I think just like you said, is I definitely need that rest so that when I pick up a project, um, the goal um, is that if all prayerfully all things work, I can utilize every day of the week to create an episode of a different show. So by the time like a month or two rolls into play, because winter season's over, I can spend that time editing so that I can release maybe spring of this year. While I schedule all the release dates for hopefully the things that I do, I can, start working on, see how people like them, see which one gets renewed for a second season. The best part about being a boss is you get to renew your own shows for another season. Um, and kind of fill it out from there. But yeah, that's what I'm really looking forward to. A lot of projects, a lot of things in pre-production right now. Um, but I'm excited because I want to show um, the creativity and just the ingenuity of how we're planning to move forward with Christian content. Now, I'm not saying that I'm not. I guess in a way that look at for what the potential is going to be rather than what it is right now, and that's the idea that I'm between content that I'm planning on doing to help. I only, in fact, actually have your brother is the only person that I'd actually like to take on specifically as a client. I have a dope ideas as far as content and how to help promote his business. So that's like you and your brother are like the only two people that I'm like taking that initial jump where I can make the time for. But there's a project that I know that I want to create. There's a project that God wants me to start. And I think Miracle Moments is definitely going to be one of them. You're just going to have to wait to see what that looks like. But goal with every one of my content is to make them as authentic and realistic as possible. So we just let the Holy Spirit move, and I'm kind of excited. I may be able to join someone's podcast. Who knows?
It's gonna be a
Yeah.
beautiful
Somebody reached
thing.
out. Yeah, somebody reached out to let me do a podcast, which is weird because like we recorded a whole season for a podcast. I The issue is the partner that I worked with lost the audio for I think half of the season, if not all of it. So that's left to the wind at this point. But we had some really great topics that we had on there, and hopefully I get to transition some of those topics from a male perspective and a female perspective, and kind of go from there. So my goal is to be able to spend some time with God, free myself, and allow Him to pick a project and just go. You know, I
Man,
I I have I have studio idea for music. Me and your brother is gonna get into one of them. We're definitely gonna record some of the poems that I have, and then start pre-production on some of the scripts that I have. Like honestly, at this point right now, it's like Russian roulette with all the content that I have. It's just spinning and say, all right, God, which one you want, and it's that one, and we're just gonna do it. But the goal is to be able to work on a few small projects at a time, something minor scale, just to get people to see what we're all about, and before we start some of the bigger TV shows that I kind of want to like map out.
good stuff, bro. It's an honor and a privilege to have you on today, man. This has
Man, the
been a
honor
dope
is
talk,
mine.
and I know this will not be the last time, man. I'm looking forward to busting it up with you again, bro.
Listen, man, the honor is mine. I'm very selective about podcasts. I had a couple of people reach out, and I just all said no. This is the only one that I said yes to. So it begins the upsetting season of people upset that I didn't choose their podcast. And I'm just gonna be that one person that just be selective. If you get me
Well,
on, God is good. If you
you,
don't,
you know my
God is
motto.
good.
They could fight me. You know what I mean? It is what it is. We can throw the hands. I ain't worried about
Now listen, they gonna fight
it.
me. They're gonna fight me because they're the one they asked me, and I said no. Don't go on
uh,
this man, and he light skinned. I see how it is. No,
hey,
go ahead.
it is what it is. Hey man, but I truly appreciate you, man. Another awesome pod from my guest, Mr. Tosin Adebayo. I appreciate you, bro. Love you. All
Love
of
you,
our
man.
guests, man. You guys take care. Until next time. God bless.
Peace.
Hey, before you go, make sure you subscribe to the channel and like this video.